Hey everyone, Liz Justice here from the Personal Development Network, and I'm shooting this video today to give you my overview and review of the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book that kind of gives you a different way to look at money and look at wealth, and just a different way to think about security, financial security, and dealing with money in general. And it's a book that a lot of people read when they first either it triggers interest in real estate, or it's something that people talk about in real estate circles. It's a very common book for real estate investors to have read, and often the first book that people read when they're really getting into it. I will forever be grateful to this book, to Robert Kiyosaki, to the person who introduced me to this book, because it really has changed the course of my life. I read this book for the first time almost a year ago, and instantly I said, I am doing everything wrong. I went to school and I got a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. That was the end-all be-all to me at the time. And by the way, when I did this, I got my degree a little less than a month before I turned 30, so I was a non-traditional student. So it was a really big accomplishment to me to to stop my life and go get this degree so I could go have a career where I can make $100,000. Not at first, but eventually work my way up to six figures. And wow, that's amazing. And then I read this book and think, dang, I wish I had read this book so long ago, because it gives you the chance to really think about money, and it starts you on your path to financial intelligence. After you read this book, you will never look at money the same way again. And it's really easy. My mindset before reading the book was, money's not important. I don't want to be wealthy. I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be secure. And he really challenges the notion of security through the traditional route. And it really resonated with me, the way he talked about my job security, and how when I go to work, I'm not building wealth for myself. I'm building wealth for a company, and in exchange they're paying me the bare minimum to keep me. You might think, well, there's a lot of companies that they're going to pay you more because they're going to pay you what you're worth. Yeah, but you're worth what is the bare minimum to keep you. When you're in the rank and file, you're an engineer, you're a technician, you're an accountant, you're a banker, you're a teller, you're these things. What your job function is important, but there's a lot of people who can do it. While that particular job is building wealth for the company, you yourself aren't any special being. Yeah, you might have some special talents, and that's why as you go up, you have a little bit more special talents, but really you can be replaced with people who have maybe slightly different talents. One of the examples he gives about money is that you can create it pretty much out of thin air. If you are a deal broker and you find opportunities and you find people who are interested in those opportunities, you don't necessarily have to make money, have to have money to make money. So, for example, in the real estate, if you find somebody who wants to just get the heck out of their house and needs to be fixed up, and they need to sell it fast, and they'll sell it for a low price because they know it needs to be fixed up and nobody's going to want to buy this retail. So if you find that deal, but you don't have the money to buy it, you can go find somebody else who says, hey, I know I can make money on that house, and sell that to them. And you basically sell the contract to them, and then you make $5,000-$10,000 depending on the deals you negotiated on each end. But being a middleman gives you the chance to make money without even having to put really any money into it. Okay, so he talks about how there are 3 different types of income. There is earned income, like everything like you get when you work your job 9 to 5. There is portfolio income. That's when you own businesses or actively manage real estate. Then there's passive income, And these are when you are just getting royalties or something that you're not putting work into every day. So it could be a business that you trained other people to take over and you just have shares of it, or it could be stock market. It could be real estate if you have somebody managing it, or like a real estate trust. The thing is that taxes are highest on the earned income. So it's not necessarily because the rich are playing some game and trying to avoid taxes. It's how our tax codes are written. Anybody who has a W-2, they have their taxes taken out. That's the first thing that's removed from their money, from their paycheck, is their taxes. Yeah, I know. There's pre-tax deductions and post-tax deductions and all that stuff. But before the money touches your account, the government already has their money, right? So who do you pay first from your check? The government. If I have a business, I am going to spend a whole bunch of money, and then at the end of the year, I'm going to calculate that I'm going to spend money on my expenses, of course, and then I'm going to calculate I had this much income, I had this much expenses, and then I pay the taxes on the difference. So I pay my expenses before I pay taxes. That's the huge difference between your regular income and how the wealthy work, and with corporations and things like that. And income taxes are really hurting the people who are out there having a W-2 and they pay all of their expenses afterwards. Another thing he talks about is how so many different things can be used as expenses when you have your own LLC, which I do. So if I can go on a vacation and have a board meeting on that vacation in Hawaii or whatever is the example he uses, and that vacation now becomes tax deductible. Earlier this year, we went on a cruise. There were seminars on the cruise related to our business, and we were able to write part of that cruise off as a business expense. So these are just this is going to lower my income, our year-end income, and because I'm still working at W-2, it's going to help increase my tax return. One of the traps that we have is people are stuck between the emotions of fear and greed. So people are afraid they're not going to make enough money to pay all their bills and keep all their lights on and all that stuff. And then when they get their paycheck and they get all those bills paid, then the emotion of greed takes over, and they want to go out and spend what's left instead of looking for an asset to invest in. These two battling emotions of fear and greed are what keep people in the rat race. And so anytime your income increases, your expenses just increase along with it. So if you've ever been guilty of saying, if I just had a little bit more money, we'd be happier. If I just got a raise, if we just made some more money on the side, if whatever, we'd be doing a lot better. Chances are that if that did happen, you would have just increased your expenses to go right along with that raise, because the emotions of fear and greed take over. It's a very human thing to do. It's very normal, and it's why most Americans are trapped in what he calls the rat race, which is continuing to work because you have to, and continuing to spend because you want to. It's just what makes you feel better. So then he talks about to improve, the best way to make money is to invest in assets. And one of the biggest lies, and I really had to think about this for a while after I had listened to it, but one of the biggest lies is that your house is an asset. Now, there are real estate investors who are going to disagree with this, but by his definition of assets, it is your house is a liability. He considers an asset something that will make money, will cause income to be generated. Your house is an expense that you have to pay on, so it's not an asset. It's not going to make you any money. Now, in my case, my houses have made me money because every time I have sold a house, I have made money on it. But in the meantime, while living in it, it sure felt like a liability because I had to pay, upwards of $2,000 a month to service the mortgage, to pay the taxes, to pay for the electricity or the utilities or whatever, any kind of maintenance, insurance, all these things you have to pay. It's a liability. The message isn't don't buy a house. It's just understand that this house isn't an asset, and don't look at it that way, and look for other assets. He also says, don't just say I'm not going to buy any kind of luxuries, but find an asset that will produce the income that you need to buy those luxuries. So he talks about how his wife ended up, I think they bought several apartment buildings, and they worked up. They didn't just go out and buy several apartment buildings. Nobody can do that when they're starting out. But you start with a house or two houses, and you don't buy the house straight up. You start small and you work your way up, and then before after a few years, you can afford to go out there and buy that Mercedes. And at that point, that Mercedes is going to feel so much better because you did the financially smart thing and you produced the income, and that Mercedes is a reward for you being smart and working hard towards your goal. Whereas if you go out and you can't really afford a Mercedes, but you can kind of like stretch your books to make it look like you can, and you go ahead and buy the Mercedes anyway, eventually you are going to resent that Mercedes because it's costing you a lot of money. So when people spend beyond their means, this happens all the time. Luxuries basically are a great reward. I've heard this said a lot of times, that fake it until you make it is great, but don't do that when it comes to money. Don't go out there and pretend like you have a lot of money to spend and put yourself in the poorhouse by making yourself look wealthy, because that's not going to bring you wealth. Wealth is going to come through just being smart financially, making smart financial decisions, and building your asset column before you build your liability column. And so the key takeaways are, if you can master your emotions of fear and desire, you will be able to get out of the rat race faster. Know the difference between assets and liabilities. Be able to read a financial balance sheet. Become financially educated, and again, you'll get out of the rat race faster. If you put your money into the right column, you'll get out of the rat race faster. Finally, that more money won't solve your problems. Chances are more money will just lead to more debt. Another thing is that debt isn't bad necessarily. Consumer debt is bad. So when you go spend money when you go take a credit card and go buy a bunch of clothes, go buy meals out, entertainment, whatever, and you don't pay that off at the end of the month, that is bad. You're paying high interest on that. But if you go buy a house and your loan servicing on that house is $500 a month, and you're collecting rent $800 a month, that's good debt. That good debt is bringing you money in. So know the difference between good debt and bad debt, and you'll be able to use it effectively to build your wealth up. So, gosh, if you ever just feel stuck in your job and you just don't, you're okay with what you're doing, but you just feel like there's something bigger out there, or you hate your job and you know there's something better out there, but basically you don't want to feel like this is it. This is all there is to life. I highly recommend picking up this book, audiobook, Kindle book. If you don't use Audible, you can get one book free. If you sign up for their program, and if you just cancel before the end of the 30 days, then you don't have to pay any additional fees. Although I highly, highly, highly recommend keeping your Audible subscription, because after you read this book, you're going to just want to read a ton of books on money and just really get that concept just sunk into your brain about money is completely different than how you've looked at it all these years. You can really, you don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. You don't have to have a W-2. You can become wealthy. You actually can become wealthy without winning the lottery. There's tons of self-made millionaires out there, and millionaires aren't all just from their parents being wealthy and passing it down to them. In fact, when there are millionaire parents that pass the money down to their kids, it's often lost in that generation because they don't necessarily teach their kids how to handle that kind of money. So realize that you can become a millionaire, and it's only how you use your brain that's going to keep you in the position you're in the rat race, or get you to become on the path to financial freedom and building your wealth. Such an amazing book, and it will really open your eyes up to a whole different world. And like I said, I just cannot say enough. If you're, I cannot push this book on you enough. This is the book I tell everybody to read. So please, please, please read this book, listen to this book, whatever you have to do. All right. Not sure what I'm going to be doing next, but if you would like to be surprised and find out, subscribe, click on the bell icon, and get notified when my next video comes out. And don't forget to like this video. All right, guys. See you later.